Indeed, indeed, and welcome back. Up next, hypnotherapy and UFO abduction cases with Yvonne Smith. Get ready for that on Coast to Coast AM. Okay, a special program for you because this hour we've got Yvonne Smith, hypnotherapist, and then later on for 2 hours, next hour starting, Robert Salas joins us with his story called Faded Giant. He had been with the Air Force for a number of years, and he's got an incredible case that he wants to talk about. Yvonne Smith began researching the UFO phenomenon in the late 1980s, and she received her hypnotherapy certification in 1990. She specializes in cases of post-traumatic stress disorder, observing that many of her subjects were describing a pattern of alien abduction and other close encounter experiences. She founded Close Encounters Resource Organization. Here she is on Coast to Coast. Yvonne, welcome back. How are you?
Thank you so much, George. I'm wonderful. I appreciate you having me back on the show.
God, you remind me of the movie The Fourth Kind.
Oh, no.
A little bit. I mean, that was a movie based on abductions and hypnotherapy.
It was.
But frightening. But are some of these cases, and we're going to get into some of these with you, are they that scary?
You know, it's unfortunate, George. I've had so many people emailing me, asking me the same thing about Fourth Kind. I went to see it with some of my serial members. Of course, I was very curious about it because it has to do with my work. And I researched this supposed case of mass abduction in Nome, Alaska, and researched the doctor, the psychologist. I don't have my note in front of me.
Abigail something.
Abigail,
right? Yeah.
Right, exactly. And, you know, for those of us who've been in the field, I'm in this field now 20 years, we would have heard about this case. We would have known about this case. I researched it in depth and could not find anything in relation to a case in Nome, Alaska, or this particular doctor. And in watching the movie, I cringed at the portrayal of the hypnosis sessions because, really, George, it reminded me more of a demonic possession as opposed to a UFO abduction.
And it was Hollywood.
And it was, and of course, yeah, they do have to sell their tickets. And I really had to assure people that were writing me and calling me that were thinking about doing regression and asking me, does this happen? You know, is this dangerous? I mean, in the 20 years, I've never had anyone commit suicide. I've never had anyone commit a murder-suicide. I was horrified, to tell you the truth. And it's really unfortunate that the producers of this movie try to portray this as a documentary.
They took a little Blair Witch and tried to squeeze something. And they even had phony websites made up to make people think it was a real story.
Yeah, and it just, it for those of us who are really trying to do some serious research, it really takes us a few steps back because then we have to try to justify why is it portrayed like this. And, I've never had, in the 20 years I've been doing this, I've never had anyone come to me and say they regretted doing hypnosis.
Well, it was, Yvonne, it was brilliant viral marketing. But for people like you who are very serious researchers, it's got to make your job difficult because it scares the living daylights out of people. Now, there is one guy out there of a few, David Jacobs, who might think that movie's pretty accurate. What do you think?
I don't know, George. I know that there's been some controversy surrounding David, and it's unfortunate. He's a close colleague of mine. I don't know the particulars of the case. I know there's some legal complications involved with this, so I really cannot comment.
Well, but he does believe that these cases, in general, are being done not for good purposes, that there's something very evil about it.
There are some people I know that feel that the encounters with these entities are evil. I get the question all the time, are they good? Are they bad? We want to put everything in a nice little neat box. And really, I do not think they're either. They're not malevolent or benevolent.
Do you think they're happening?
Oh, absolutely. I have so much documented now. I'm working on my second and third book as we speak, writing my second and third book. The
first one's called Chosen, right?
First one's called Chosen, which is out now, doing very well. I thank everybody out there. And the second one that I'm writing is, believe it or not, it's a mass abduction. It's a very interesting case in the on Coronado Island in San Diego several years ago. 11 people were abducted all on the same weekend when I was emceeing a conference. At the same time, this was at the Del Coronado, that President Clinton was on the island as well, and in the same hotel. So putting everything together, lots of notes, lots of regression and transcripts. So I'm hoping to have that out June of 2011. But, people know me, George, by my abduction work and, of course, my book, Chosen. But they forget that my specialty is PTSD. And PTSD can happen to, of course, our military returning now from Iraq, people who suffered as children, some kind of abuse.
Oh, absolutely. It's got to be huge, huh?
People that cleaned up after these terrorist attacks, like, for instance, at 9/11. Mm-hmm. I'm here tonight, and I really want to thank you again for giving me this opportunity to talk about cases, not only the abduction cases that I've dealt with for the last 20 years, but also I've dealt with people in the military who have had encounters, and not just abduction encounters, but close encounters.
Well, when I was 21 years old, I had the opportunity to interview via phone Dr. Benjamin Simon when he was in Boston, mm-hmm. who was the hypnotherapist psychiatrist for Barney and Betty Hill.
Exactly.
And he told me, and I will distinctly remember this, when I asked him, I said, do you believe that this couple was abducted? And he said, I believe that they believe it, mm-hmm. that they are not lying, that whatever happened to them was real in their minds, and that it's very possible. And that's what he said. And he could not say to me, yes, it surely happened, but he also couldn't say, no, it did not.
Did not happen.
But he was convinced that they believed it happened. So that's pretty dramatic all by itself.
It is, and especially back in the day, when Betty and Barney Hill had that experience. Of course, back then, nobody knew about missing time and abduction, but here we have come a long way. And, I had the opportunity to study with my colleague, Bud Hopkins, mm-hmm. For when I first started my practice, and learned so much. And in the 20 years now, I can say, George, that, and I know many therapists do not want to put their necks out on the chopping block, but I can say that people out there, and there are thousands, millions of people, I'm talking worldwide, are having true physical contact or abduction experience.
Now, can we say from what or whom?
At this point, we cannot. I mean, they describe, of course, as you know, the typical 3 to 4 foot gray beings with the large eyes. Those seem to be the ones that are doing the abduction.
Right. In the movie, they called it the owl, right?
Yes.
There was a tight shot. It looked like an owl when they were out of focus, and then when you mm-hmm. focused it, you clearly could see it. A very daunting-looking alien gray.
Absolutely. This is what we call a screen memory. It comes in the form of an owl or deer eyes. It's something about the eyes that people have a problem with.
And you get a lot of that in your hypnotherapy sessions?
Absolutely. There's a lot of screen memory. It's very, very interesting, where people will have an episode of missing time. Of course, they don't realize it till sometimes many years later. And they'll say, I was driving with my family, and we came across blinking lights, and it was ambulance, and they were just blinking, and then they don't remember anything after that. And something about the situation started haunting them, but later, many years later. And this is a strange component to what we call the missing time experiences. But it's very, very common. I'm at the point now where you become sort of like a police detective. So when someone contacts you and they begin to tell you about their experiences, and of course now we're at the age of email and text messages. Now I'm getting emails from all over the world, and people describe almost the same type of experience.
How do you find these people, Yvonne, or how do they find you?
They find me, George, probably, thanks to your show, my website. I do not advertise. I think, when you're in the business for a certain amount of time and you gain a reputation, people then come to you. And I wish I could help everyone around the world. I received just an email the other morning from someone in Spain, another one, from Australia. They're from all over the world. In fact, I'm doing another radio show out of Australia.
What have you concluded personally about this phenomenon?
Right now, number one, as I mentioned before, I know that these experiences are real. These people are not imagining these experiences.
But would you have to say, though, that they're real, like Benjamin Simon told me they're real? Like something's happening to these people, and they believe it. We just don't know what it is.
That's exactly.
Okay.
We're getting a little bit closer. I feel very, very strongly that whoever they are, extraterrestrials, we'll say, whatever they're doing, I feel that their agenda revolves around the hybrid program. I try to not talk about this too much when I'm doing an interview because I'm trying to reach out to the mainstream general public. So when you start talking about hybridization, alien and human offspring, because during the experiences they take ova and sperm, people are shown babies. We're really getting into the very depth of the abduction experience. I feel that that's a huge part of it.
See, what I think is happening, I think, one would think if they were benevolent, that what they're doing is creating these hybrids, and they want them to adjust for a future planet here, that something will happen. They know about it, some earth change, and they're making between human and them, they're making this hybrid that could adapt to that. The good part says that's what they're doing. The bad part says they're going to come back and invade us with these things.
Well, that's the whole thing, George. Is right now we don't know what ultimately is going to happen with these hybrids. Now, I think we're in that next phase.